Hello! Welcome to my first ever Q&A video! Woo! After my frequently asked questions video, I thought maybe I'd do one with some not so frequently asked ones. I've curated a selection of interesting questions that I think will make for good content, so thanks for asking. I know you're an excellent seamstress and you like fashion. Have you ever thought of producing your own designs or fashion line? Well, someday, maybe. I'm a good seamstress. I wouldn't say excellent. I'm decent. I'd be better if I sewed more often, but it's just one of my many hobbies, so I don't do it that much. I made some of my own clothes when I was younger. I'll still make an accessory or something from time to time. A lot of the time I'll end up taking in clothes or like cutting up t-shirts or just doing little things here and there. Cosplay really takes up all my time, and so I haven't really made anything really original in a long time. Someday it could be a career path. I do have a degree in fashion design, so I have that going for me, but who knows? Is Waluigi Wario's daddy, or does he get around to the leather bars also? Well, I'm no Waluigi expert. I may be a Waluigi aficionado at best. I would like to think that they're in a happily monogamous relationship, though they met at a leather bar cruising when they were younger, and now they happily switch top and bottom. What kind of music do I like? So, I'm a goth, been one for a long time. It's just something I have to live with about myself. I love industrial. That is my favorite kind of music, though my favorite band is actually the questionably emo band Brand New. What can I say? I grew up in the 2000s. But I love industrial, especially old school Wax Trax bands. None of that like newer Combi Christ kind of stuff. I don't really like that stuff. I like older, like German and Belgian, Front 242, Nitzareb, like Cabaret Voltaire, all that stuff. Die for it. My favorite band was traditionally Nine Inch Nails, but it's kind of been replaced by pre-2000s Ministry. I also really love Massive Attack and Fiona Apple. I guess I like a lot of different kinds of music. Only kinds of music I don't really like is metal and country, and some of the modern pop music can be kind of annoying, but it's fun to dance to, so. What's the number one cosplay I want to do, or one that I've always wanted to do but haven't gotten to? Oh my god, Shodan, obviously. I did a sort of body paint version for Halloween one year, but I'm dying to do a real version with a big light up headpiece and a latex dress and like crazy body paint. Oh my gosh, it would be so much fun. What's my next cosplay? Gosh, depending on when you watch this video, it could be any number of things. I really try to put out as much as I can. I try to alternate between smaller and bigger costume builds so that I'm always having new content to put out, but without it getting too kind of boring. Right now I'm working on Ripley from Alien. I'm thinking of doing some more Venture Brothers cosplay. I've got a Star Wars outfit I want to do. Like, honestly, you could ask me anytime and I'd have at least 5 projects in mind that I'm working toward. What's my next tattoo? Well, I'm working on getting color on my piece on my right side, and I'm going to be getting that done later this year. After that, I'm thinking of getting a quarter sleeve on this side of one of my, again, classic illustration pieces. Honestly, I'm nowhere near done getting tattoos. They're going to be coming for a long time. What kind of locations do I like to do shoots in, and do I go for accuracy or creativity when I make my cosplays? Well, absolutely the best place to shoot is in a studio because it's nice and comfortable. There's usually a bathroom there. Awesome. Sometimes I have to shoot in some less convenient places like in the woods or on a beach where there's no bathroom and I gotta hike to get there. All these people are looking at me while I get naked and it's not great, but I don't mind it as much as a lot of people probably do. As for my cosplays, it really depends. Sometimes I'll try to get creative with something, and other times I'm just really dedicated to accuracy. It really depends on the project and what I'm using it for. A good question I got recently was if there are any photo sets that I've ever done that will never see the light of day that I'm like not ever gonna publish, and unfortunately, yeah, there are a few. Most of the time, if I don't want to publish something, it's because of the photography. There's a Daenerys set that I drove out to the desert to shoot at like 2 in the morning, and the light in the morning was amazing, and the photography was just awful, and I will never publish that set, which is a bummer because it was really fun to do it. I'm very dedicated to quality in my work, and I always want to work with the best photographers that I can, and I have reliably had really great photographers for the last few years, but that hasn't always been the case. Sometimes I'll shoot something and it just doesn't come out, whether it's lighting or focus or just the angles or something the photographer was shooting from, and it just doesn't work out, which is a bummer, but what can you do? One of my cosplayer friends asked me who in the world of professional cosplay inspires me, and maybe it's kind of a cheap answer, but a couple of my friends are really inspiring to me. One of my biggest inspirations over the years has been my friend Vivid Vivka, who I met in 2012 working a convention together, and she is just one of the most genuinely sweet and wonderful people, and plus her costumes are amazing, and I love that she is not afraid to be weird, which is something that I really value in my work. Similarly, two of my friends, Radical Edward and Kanani, who are twins, a photographer and model duo, the work they do together is amazing. Their costume builds are flawless, the photography is perfect. Every time I see them do something, I am just floored at how dedicated they are to their craft. They really, really inspire me. I have been asked a few times which my favorite convention is, and hands down, my favorite convention is Gen Con. It's maybe not necessarily my genre, as I've never been a big tabletop person, but that convention is just amazing for the people. I haven't spent a lot of time in Indiana otherwise, so I don't know if it's the con or the city or what, but everybody there is just amazingly nice. Such wonderful people. I've made friends there that I'll probably keep for the rest of my life. I love that show. Another good question I got was asking me what the funniest moment I ever had in cosplay was. Probably the entirety of the Mario Princess trio shoot that I did with my friends Bear and Squeaks a few years ago. We were just cracking up and making jokes and just laughing our butts off at each other the whole time. There was cupcakes flying everywhere. I ended up with frosting in my wig that I didn't find until next year. It was just so much fun. Another really fun moment I had in cosplay was when I was cosplaying as Triana Orpheus from the Venture Brothers, and I ran into a guy who was cosplaying as Dr. Orpheus, who's Triana's father. And of course we were like, oh my god, you don't see people doing Venture Brothers characters that often. And I kind of lured him into the booth I was working, and I was like, hey, not to make it weird, but here's a picture of me as this character. You want to see me naked? Probably a bit creepy on my part, but the look on his face was priceless. So, real talk. A question I got was what some of the things I love and don't love so much about the adult and cosplay industry are. Without taking up all of your time, here's some things I love about the industry. I love how easy it is to make friends. It seems like all of us are really trying to figure out what we're doing, as this is still a really new field. Cosplay is such a niche thing still that we are all kind of similar people. We're big nerds who just want to be really creative and have a lot of fun. I've made some great friends through cosplaying, and I've had some really wonderful memories made. Some of the things I don't love so much about the industry is just how hard it is. It's really hard to get started. Just going to conventions, having an Instagram page really isn't enough, and a lot of it is kind of luck. Getting featured on some big page or having a post go viral are some things that can give you a boost, but are really just luck. It's really hard to make it otherwise. Cosplay community can also be kind of catty, and it can run a little bit behind on some social justice issues like racism and transphobia. For the most part, I've seen that the cosplay community is really inclusive to do in making it really inclusive for everyone so that everybody can have a positive experience cosplaying. Probably the hardest thing about my job is that everybody expects me to do it for free, which can be a real bummer when I put so much time and effort and money into my cosplays and my content. And people are so used to free porn that they can't even conceive of paying for it. I often tell people that even if you can't financially support your favorite cosplayer, the best thing you can do is just to be in their corner rooting for them. You can support your favorite creators by sharing their content or leaving comments and liking their posts to boost the algorithm. If your favorite content creator does streams, then hang out in their streams with them and keep the chat going. It really is pretty easy to support us. What is my best cosplay and what is my worst cosplay? Well, subjective, really. I will say that a lot of my cosplays when I was first getting started were pretty rough. I didn't really know how to sew yet, and I didn't know about wigs, I didn't know about makeup. It has taken me a long time to get to a point where I can look at a picture of myself in cosplay and say, yeah, that looks awesome. My best cosplay, maybe because it was just such an undertaking, but I really think that my totally 80s Zarya is really impressive. But it's got armor in it, so it was bound to be impressive no matter what. One of the other cosplays that I'm the proudest of is my Rosalina cosplay. That dress was really hard to sew, and I made the whole thing from scratch, pattern and all. As for my worst cosplays, well, it was years ago, but I once showed up to work an event and I didn't have any anime cosplays, and it was an anime event. So they said, we've got this costume, why don't you wear that? And It was only a couple pieces of the costume, and the rest of it I just kind of had to cobble together out of what I had in my bag, and it was not great. A few years ago I tried to do a version of Emily the Strange from, you know, those old Hot Topic comic books, and it wasn't great either. I sometimes will try a little bit too hard to make things out of easily available materials, which can not look so great sometimes. If you didn't know that I'd ever cosplayed those characters, well, that's probably why. I'm not going to share a lot of pictures of something I'm not proud of. I love being asked about food. What's my favorite food? Cake. I'm also a huge fan of coffee. Sure, it's food, whatever. If you drink as much as I do, yeah, it's food. I've been kind of into baking recently, which is kind of just an excuse to eat a lot of cake. A lot of people who are into baking think that cakes are overrated and they're a lot better and more interesting desserts, but honestly, nothing beats a good cake for me. I also really love Asian cuisines. I recently had Indonesian food for the first time and it was amazing. A lot of my fans know that I work in a coffee shop, and sometimes they'll ask if any of my fans have ever shown up at the coffee shop, which, yes, they have. And it's not weird. It's really not. I always tell people it's only weird if you make it weird. So if you show up and you're like, hey, Shodan, I follow you on Instagram or whatever, like, I love your work, love to get a cup of coffee, nice to meet you, and then go on your merry way, cool. You show up and you go, don't tell me who you are, I don't know why you're staring at me, that can be kind of weird, so don't do that. A fun question is whether I get any creeps or stalkers, or if I ever have any problems with fans, or what my weirdest fan encounter has ever been. And I think that question assumes that I'm a lot more famous than I actually am. People don't really know who I am, you guys. Like, I walk down the street and like I'm just another like weird looking kid from Oakland. Like, I blend in pretty well. Maybe I'm lucky, or maybe it's just because I keep my block hand strong, but I don't really have a lot of problems with creeps. Like, of course it happens, like every girl, regardless of whether they model or not, honestly, gets dick pics in their inbox now and then, and while, yes, I hate that a lot, it doesn't happen that often. Most of the time, if someone is creepy to me, they have no idea that I model or cosplay or do any of that. Most of the people who follow me online are amazing people. They love my work, they support me, they think it's so cool that I do what I do, and they're not creepy about it. Sometimes people have this idea of fans of cosplay models as being these like basement dwelling, like mouth breather, like creepy guys, and it's just not true. Most of my fans are super chill people who love my work and have followed me for years. And they love to just talk to me, and they think I'm funny, they laugh at my jokes, bless them, share memes, talk about my cats, like, they're great, great folks. Not creepy at all. As for my weirdest fan encounter, there was a series of them with this one particular fan at Gen Con. One year, he found me and he was with his group of buddies and he said, hey, my buddies bet me $50 that I couldn't get you to kiss me on the cheek. And I was a little bit toasty at the time, and I said, sure, whatever, and I pecked him on the cheek, totally chaste, something I do to my grandmother, you know? But hey, he got $50, I thought it was funny, whatever. I saw him every year after that, and it progressively got weirder with those bets. The best one I can remember is the time that he was dressed up as Bob Ross, and he was in a hot tub. It was kind of a whole thing, and he bet his friends that he couldn't get me to motorboat him, and I did it even though I had a full face of makeup on, and it was weird, but it was really funny, so I was down. Somebody asked me if I ever struggled with self-esteem, or if I ever felt self-conscious about my body, or about my looks, or about my work, and really, of course I do. Everybody does. You can look at any internet model, the ones who have millions of followers, are making tons of money on Patreon, and I bet that they have self-esteem issues too. Everybody does. One of the things I learned very quickly when I started doing this work is that all of us have imposter syndrome. We all think that we are the ugly one and everybody else is just being really nice to us because they feel bad for us. And it's not true, of course, but that's what the little insecure demon in your head makes you think. I'm pretty confident most of the time, but I've put a lot of work into my appearance and into establishing myself in my field. I was a really ugly teenager. I struggled with acne for most of my life, and it took a long time for me to work with that, and I still have a lot of scars that I'm self-conscious about. I struggle to keep my body as toned as I want it to be. Sometimes I think I'm too tall, I think my tits are too small, but for the most part, I like myself. One of the things I try to keep in mind is that I have worked really hard to get to where I am. Even if I had bigger tits, even if I had clearer skin, I might not be any more successful than I am now. And maybe that sounds like a downer, but it actually does help me a lot, because it means that I am enough, just the way I am, and I like who I am. So if I like who I am, then it's not worth it to change it in order to try to be more successful if it won't even work. Does that make sense? Thanks so much for sending in your questions. If this does well, then maybe I'll do some more of these, or focus on a specific topic. I'm not great at the whole talking thing, but I figure it's something I should probably practice, right?